Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Between Two Shirts. As you can see, we are not doing Zoom anymore, and thankfully Victorians have done their part and we're allowed outside. And today Paul and I, as you can see, are outside. Now we are joined by a few people watching us in some sort of awe or awkwardness, but as you can also see, behind us is a beautiful field, but behind you is a beautiful toilet. And hopefully these coffees don't send us there. Today we had a bit of an adventure because we're allowed outside in the past few days. Let's just say it was a fail. We visited a few thrift shops or salvos or any sort of secondhand store, and let's just say when it comes to the Australian market, we've done a big fail, but we'll talk about that soon. But Paul, how does it feel not being on Zoom today?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely amazing, mate. I'll give you a coffee first so we can keep going. Sorry, it's very short. This is typical Italian fashion. We're going to go nice and strong, nice and small. Yeah, look, it's great to be outside. It's being locked up in captivity for the last few months sucked. But I think it was good. It was good to get out, good to get to the thrift shop scene. But yeah, it wasn't as eventful as what we were expecting, obviously. I think we were sort of hopeful that, being that the online market's so busy and that there's a lot going on in the football space, that the thrift shops would have sort of supported that. But look, there wasn't much going on for us, which kind of sucked. But hey, at least we're hanging out, at least we're outside and we're not in lockdown anymore.
The thing with lockdown, like we've done our part and now the UK is going to enjoy that. But like we said, all the kit stuff is online. And when it comes to the kit sales and prices, we're hoping to find something and just talk about undervalued. But we did see one shirt. It was like a Yarra Jets one, a local team. It was selling for $20. And I think that's the big issue with thrift shops. Now, we are recording our side, so again, forgive us for any chirping, any wind sounds, or any sort of random person screaming in the background. And of course, as Aussies, you may hear Kath and Kim's in the background. But we are outside, and do let us know what your thoughts are on this episode. Now, I know a lot of other YouTubers like Poet and Vuj are doing outdoor episodes, and of course, the soccer podcast in Perth. But this is something new we're trying, and I'm really excited. Paul brought his ethnic sort of culture with us outdoors. We're enjoying a bit of coffee. But let's talk to our first subject, mate. Is there anything you want to mention before we talk about the subject?
No, let's get right into it, man. I think it'd be good to kick things off straight away. Do you want us to move straight into the culture of football in Australia?
So when it comes to the thrift shop or jerseys?
Yeah, correct,
Look, I think when it comes to jerseys themselves, we got to remember that the jerseys come here some way. Either it's family, so if it's an older generation, pre-90s jersey, it would have come here with family, usually UK families moving to Perth or Sydney or Melbourne with heritage from. So usually you see like QPRs, Man United, Liverpool's, that sort of background with the country they've come from. But I don't think we found anything like that. I think maybe it's cleaned out. But I think as an Australian culture, everything's online. We are pretty, forward thinking when it comes to sales.
Yeah, definitely, that's correct. And I apologise for the bit of the delay between handing mics around. But I think I was interested because I thought, especially around sort of inner city suburbs, I know that there was a lot of European in particular immigrants that are obviously relatively passionate football fans. I thought that would have been a strong suit, especially in the areas that we were looking for shirts in. But it wasn't the case. I'm sure there would be at some degree. We're probably just not looking in the right places. But yeah, exactly like you said, I think the online market in Australia is very strong, and I think people are picking up on the fact that these items are worth something more than just a giveaway. So I think the places like eBay's and Gumtree's and even Facebook Marketplace and things like that, that's probably where they're going to end up. Obviously, there's the risk involved with that because you need to be careful in terms of trying to find something authentic. It's a bit more of a challenge on these sort of places because some people can be a little bit shady. But I think, I think there's definitely something to being a very forward-thinking country in terms of being online.
And I think the way some jerseys make at the thrift shops are usually mum or dad's cleaning out the closet, or your husband or wife cleaning out that closet in respect. There are ways, like we all say as kids, oh my God, we had that beautiful jersey, but mum threw it out or dad threw it out. And that's a sort of issue when we're younger. We look back at our kids and we're like, well, I wish we had that kid still. But good thought about the whole Gumtree, the sort of marketplace style, because I think when you try to find someone to sell the kit to, there is someone going to buy it. And that's the way these kits ended up in the sort of second-hand home sort of thing, is because they've given up and they haven't actually thought about the price. So it's usually the only way it makes it there is if it's the owner doesn't understand the value in upcycling or even just selling it, making a profit out of it. I think we visited about 5 stores today and 2 of them were closed just because we're reopening since the lockdown. Do you think that in a couple of weeks when people start spring cleaning, because now they're allowed to go outside and shop and have that culture of wasting money on new clothes. Do you think we're going to find more?
Yeah, definitely. I think the start of lockdown was interesting because I know personally I started cleaning out things I didn't need in my house, and my wife was obviously doing the same thing. But I think it was a common trend because people were out of work and people were quite bored. So the home renovations kicked off and people started clearing out everything that they didn't want anymore. But going back to what you said about finding some sort of mental value in an older shirt, I think now's an interesting time because obviously guys at our age have grandparents that are quite old, or and hopefully not passing away, but that's a life and these things do happen. So you obviously do end up with some hand-me-downs. An uncle of mine has a USA Italy '94 kit that was my grandfather's, and that's something that he's going to hang on to forever, and I'm sure we'll pass it to his kids. So I think the recognizing of the value, and even whether it be sentimental value or monetary, it's regardless, it's still something that's worth something. And I think that's definitely something that's going to get recognized now, and hopefully more often in the future.
Coming from a Macedonian background, Balkan, there isn't many kits that my grandparents bought because they moved early, way before that sort of generation. So my parents didn't really have that sort of bringing over here. But yeah, well, look, when teams came over here like Red Star, my dad had some kits. That was like something that he gave over to me. But look, I think as sort of a culture when it comes to recycling, upcycling, the thrift shops and do a good part for second life to certain items. But I think the football jersey scene in Australia isn't as lucky as everyone in the Europe is, because again, Europe is connected to many other places. If you're in the UK, you are connected to Paris with only one train away, Belgium, and many other countries. But in Australia, we've only got like Asia and Japan, which unfortunately is really known for fakes. So when we go to these stores, we do see a lot of fakes. Like Brazil, we saw that fake Brazilian kit. Now, do you think because we're based in Australia, so far away from sort of like the homely time, someone's screaming about his dog who might attack us soon. But do you think being based in Australia does give us that disadvantage?
Yeah, definitely to a degree. This guy has a squeaky toy and his dog's gone rampage. Yeah, okay, back to what I was saying. I do think, look, Australia definitely is at a disadvantage compared to Europe. Obviously, it's hard, right? So, the football culture here is quite small because there's so much more to compete with too. I know Europe obviously has other sports, and this guy's still going with his squeaky toy. You done, mate? Actually does. I'll go back to where I was. Yeah, so I think, look, okay, I know Europe they have their competitive sports, so things like basketball and stuff are still obviously quite big throughout most of Europe. But bringing that into Australia, I think it's a bit of a competitive market because we've got so many other sports here that are quite popular, obviously AFL and NRL, which takes away from that. And I definitely think that it's a challenge. I know obviously there's a few guys in the UK that I've seen online on Twitter in particular complaining about the availability of shirts from thrift stores and things like that, and that like companies like Classic Football Shirts have commercialized the market, getting in firsthand. And I don't know whether that's truth or not, or whether it's just a conspiracy theory. But hey, look, if it is true, it's genius on their front because it gives them full accessibility to everything that is available. But yeah, I think we definitely do struggle in Australia from a sense of trying to find something that is rare. I know myself that, look, personally from my own businesses ventures, it's been beneficial to venture abroad and try and find people overseas that are willing to sell and ship to Australia. At least that way it makes it available to the people here. Because I know there is a market here. And this guy with his squeaky toy. Rod Stewart's instrument, your new instrument sucks. Yeah, I think there's definitely... Oh my God. Yeah, look, so there's definitely something to... The market's here, right? Like, so people here do love football, and I think there's a nostalgia around classic football shirts, and there's a need for it here. But accessing it from years gone by, from people that have bought them here from overseas when they've migrated, slim pickings, and it's going to be pretty hard to find. If you are looking for a football shirt, get online, look into the UK. Asian markets are obviously really difficult, but I think the UK is a good because they are still relatively close to countries like the Netherlands and things like that, where you still can find some really cool shirts in from affordable prices.
think something that's happened recently was Alice from Away. He's been going to a lot of shops. With his episodes when he goes to thrift shops around London and a lot of the region of the UK, he's doing his part of trying to find kits that will never be found by certain people. Sometimes a grandma might go in and find a kit and buy it for a child. Like, someone's going to find that kit. People are complaining, saying that he's taking all the kits away from everyone and he's ruined the scene. I don't believe in that. I think he's doing his part in trying to give these kids a second life. So I think people on the internet need to calm down in that sense, because it's unfair. Because when you are looking through these thrift shops, of course you may sell them on, but that's just the nature of it. Like, people do that with cars, people do that with houses, people do that in anything when it comes to renovating. I think the scene is growing, and I think I spoke with Kitted Out recently, Ollie. We spoke about the nature of the jersey scene, the kit scene, in a couple of years, because the lockdown and pandemic has sort of given it a second life in sort of boosting it. But I do see these kits giving a sort of longevity in time. I think kits are going to be valid for a long time. I was doing a bit of research on a kit, and I believe pre-90s there wasn't many sort of, actually no, not pre-90s, post-90s, around the early 2000s. There was this grey area of kits. I think Man United had the Vodafone sort of scene. There wasn't many kits in that Premier League era that really stand out, and I think manufacturers gave up. So when it comes to the value on a kit and the sort of how some thrift shops see it, they won't see it as what online stores will see it, because a lot of us are in a respected scene, so we know the value of certain things. Like, I can't go to a car place and be like, I know the value of that car. But when it comes to a kit, I can understand that. And I think when it comes to the Australian thrift shops, I wouldn't be surprised if they see a jersey and just throw in the bin, because they think it's just another just piece of polyester or just cotton that's just, you know, like, they saw this kit, they would understand that this is from Peru. If they saw a fake Brazilian top, they'll be like, oh, this is Brazilian, it's got to be valuable. Do you think that some stores may see certain jerseys and be like, oh, this is worth nothing because it's not Brazil, it's not Manchester United or Chelsea, and when they see a fake, even if it's like a Nike logo with the Adidas name over it, do you think they're like, oh, this is valuable because of the certain color and thing?
Definitely. I've seen actually online, there's a few similar to, like, say what Facebook Marketplace is. I think there's overseas variations, so every country has their own. There's a few that are a bit more commercialized, and there's small businesses like thrift shops and things like that that are selling online. And it's really interesting to see the difference in terms of what they think is valuable and what isn't. To give you an example, I was looking at one yesterday, and I was looking through jackets, and there was a really nice Glasgow Rangers, I think it was like early 90s jacket, training jacket, like a drill top type of thing. And they wanted £200 for it. A very similar jacket, probably only made a few years later, was like £25. So it gives you some perspective into sort of how these online thrift shops are slowly perceiving these things. And it's definitely interesting how some people don't have any consideration. It's definitely interesting to see how the value of these shirts are either perceived or not perceived, just the fact that it's unknown, right? So if you're in the industry and you're in the know and you're in the football culture, and not even in the football scene, if you just know who Glasgow Rangers are, like, for example, you know that, okay, it might be worth something a bit more. Whether it's, this is when it comes back to being whether it's genuine, whether it's, you know, for whatever reason, why it might be valuable and what the value is going to be. Obviously, you know, you've got resources online that you can compare that and then see, but it's hard too now because a lot of the online markets now are quite inflated as well. So to find a true value, it is quite difficult.
Sorry about that. The Karen was walking past. No, understandable. And look, I was thinking back to early days of Savers when they first opened up. It's become a bit commercialized in the thrift shop scene. And I went there to the local one, now it's closed, and I was looking at cameras, and cameras are something that's overpriced during the pandemic, and people complaining that jerseys were overpriced. But I think in general, like, when it comes to thrift shops, they do have a part in just giving second life to certain people and get certain items. And I think when people like us, I would say we are privileged that we have full-time jobs and we can able to go and buy certain items, and we're not really needing of these items. But like, we went to a few stores today, and yeah, look, during the lockdown, they probably were closed, and a lot of people just cleaned out now. I was expecting a little bit more to see in stores, but I do think some other regions may have extra items because of the sort of suburban areas that they're influenced by and the cultures. But look, you've started PFC. You've had the opportunity to give people the kits that they want. You found this beautiful kit that I'm wearing, 96 Alianza Lima top. This may have started its origins in Peru. How did it get to Australia? You found it from a seller in Asia, and how did they get it? You know, the thing is, like, I love knowing how and where kits have gone. I want to know how they got there, and I think finding kits, you know, thrift shops is always that thrill of being like, wow, how did I score this? A gentleman from Adelaide recently showed me his, what's the word when you go somewhere and you're like, find a hoard? No, when you're like, oh, I found this whole thing. There's a word I can't remember right now. Yeah, it's like he went to his savers in Adelaide and he showed me all these kits, and I was like, how did you find like a clean Bayern Munich, like early 2000s top? And I think about it, and that's one thing that gets me so interested about, you know, just the op shops, thrift shops, is that there's sometimes just gems in there. I find like magazines, I find DVD, like Disney DVDs. It's just something about the thrift shops is always good. I think vinyls is my favorite. I always try to get vinyls, but when you go home, you're like, shit, I got the wrong vinyl because they've swapped the CD, and I should have checked that. And I think that's one thing thrift shops that I get about when it comes to jerseys is how do you notice fakes. Now, today when we're looking at things, we notice fakes, we notice some local things, and this is a good segue to the next topic I wanted to do about thrift shops. When I look at a kit, I try to find three things. It's always the back tag, it's always little details inside. This one doesn't really have any sort of attachments, so when it comes to the stitching and stuff, I try to look at that, and then of course looking at the quality of it. What are your top three ways of spotting a fake kit or a good kit?
Personally, the first thing I actually look at is the inside of the badge, so the stitching. Obviously, that's a bit of a challenge in terms of like shirts like this that are printed. But usually, like for an Alianza Lima shirt to be reproduced, it's going to be quite rare. But I really liked what you were saying about, you know, each kit has its own story, because for a kit from a team in Peru to end up in Melbourne, it's going to be pretty obscure. But I guess that's the best thing about online market now, right? Like it's incredible. But yeah, sorry, going back to what you were saying, it's definitely to authenticate. It's quite a challenge now, I think. You know, I think there's manufacturers that are getting quite good, but they do have a bit of a lapse in concentration in certain areas. There's a few key things you can look at, like so on the wash labels, there's like sometimes they'll have little markings that they'll put on there, which manufacturers won't actually put on themselves. Along with there's so many different things you can look at, and so each kit has its own like originality and own sort of features. And like I was speaking to another collector the other day, and which I love referencing from, because there's guys that have so much more experience in, for example, like Manchester United shirts. They'll know so much more about Manchester United than I will. I'll be able to try and guess whether it's, you know, relatively in good condition and whether it's, you know, an authentic shirt. But they'll pick up smaller things and things that they recognise because of their experience. And that's the greatest thing about, you know, collecting and football shirts, and whether it's football shirts or whether it's something else. You know, people have their own niche and people have this knowledge base that is profound. And so I think there's definitely you need to appreciate the effort and the time that goes into learning these things. I'm going through three things, obviously. Yeah, so the stitching is one thing. That's probably the most important for me, because I found I've been really close with some that I thought were authentic, and then you flip it inside out and there's just all this white overhanging. I think the other thing would definitely be obviously like neck tags, collars, anything else, any little product codes. For the more recent ones, definitely the product codes is one thing. Perfect example actually you've got here is the Umbros. So the Umbros, a lot of this era, they got reproduced quite heavily. And you can actually see on the tag there, underneath the tag is like sits a little white thing. It's usually almost always faded. I don't even know what it is, but it's definitely one way to tell whether your Umbro shirt is authentic or not. Yeah, correct. Yeah, and look, even, you know, like one thing, even this Alianza shirt, right? There's a few bits of damage, and you can tell it's well worn. I know that's not a tell whether it's a real or fake, but I think it's definitely something. If you're buying a shirt that's from 1980 and it's in pristine condition, brand new with tags, it is almost impossible. Yeah. If you're paying less than like $500 for that, Australian, you're doing pretty well. You're doing very well. I know you've obviously got this Lazio shirt here. You might want to talk about it a little bit, so I'll pass over to you.
Well, this is something you're selling on your store for me. Now, I think today was a great eye-opener for me, because we are not... Also, thank you for the coffee. It was really good. I'm buzzing right now. I'm ready for a run. When you are looking at thrift shops, do remember that you're not giving money to the previous owner. You're giving money to a corporation, basically. I know they say They do like Salvos and Red Army, Red Cross Army, and all that. Sorry, they all do some sort of non-for-profit. But I believe that there's always a catch in the sense that they're going to make money for the workers, which is good because they've got a job too. But I think when Savers is mentioned, I think Savers is a bit more of a monopoly because it's a business. They got to make money. So sometimes they get all this free product and they crazy prices. I really believe in markets more. Someone from home, like a garage sale type of thing. So when I went to Canberra Market, this is why I brought this out today. Now, of course, the value on your website and stuff, we won't talk about the whole thing about this. When you do find kits, you're going to find kits at a good price. But when it comes to reselling, you're going to make a profit for yourself. And the seller who sells it will make a profit for themselves. Now, of course, sometimes you might have mum and dad, your wife or your husband may sell your kits again at a market without you knowing. I know for a fact that, like, if my wife now, she's been educated in a sense that she understands the value in kits, but if she had no clue of football kits, like I don't have any understanding of some certain items in the world, I may undervalue that, like cars, gadgets, cameras, etc., film. But going to markets, you do come across certain people, you have a conversation, you learn, and you will be able to get this product and understand the product and get to know the owner previously, so you get that opportunity to learn from them. Now, I'll get you to hold this up. I remember going to Kmart markets in Melbourne. Of course, around the world, you have many markets. If you're in London, I'm pretty sure I'll be jealous because I know a lot of UK viewers and stuff go to these markets like kilo markets, and they get amazing items. I found this beautiful kit on this gentleman's setup on racks, and I was just scrolling through. He had a lot of fakes. A lot of just basketball bullshit. Like, he had a lot of stuff, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, surely I'm not going to find a football kit here. And then this appeared, and I said to him, oh, you know, how much for this? And we spoke about it. And I'm like, how did you get it? He's like, I don't know, a friend gave it to me. I'm selling it for him. I'm like, oh, okay. I checked the value, and I was like, this guy, like, this is like, I think this is Nedved area. And I bought it. I went home, and I thought to myself, I don't know how I found this. But do you reckon, of course, you and I want to bring the market sort of scene. Polyester's doing a great scene for that. Like, of course, he buys online, sells in person, so it's really good market for it. But do you think if you're an Australian watching this, you want to find kits, would you rather go to a market than go to a thrift shop just because of that understanding of where it's being bought from and the ethics behind it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think there's three tiers to this, right? So obviously you've got the thrift shop, the market, which is your personal experience, and then you've got the online store. The online store is obviously for someone that's quite rigorous about how they like to check the authenticity of their products. It's hard. It's extremely difficult because you're relying heavily on photos, and you can't feel the material to know. I think the difference between thrift shop, obviously, like you said, you know, can be commercialized. Yes, it can go to charity at times, which is definitely a beneficial thing. But I think especially if you're considering the times that we're in now, small businesses are struggling. And I definitely think supporting a small families, you know, whether it's their market store, just offloading old clothes that they don't want anymore, or yeah, exactly right. I think, and there's a lot to that. I think there's something that needs to be done from that space. There's so many big companies like the Coles, the Woolworths, that just dominate their market share, and you know, the small grocery store, they might be making great money, but I think there needs to be more care taken by society in general, just to support small business. From a football shirt sense, yeah, look, I think markets are great. Like, there's the big difference I see going forward in the future. Online shopping was obviously massive over the last 6 months, and I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think where the difference is now is the store or the marketplace or wherever you may be that's going to be in person seeing the product is going to be all about the experience. You're going to want to go in there. It's going to be about the time you're in there. It's not going to be so much about the product. It's going to be about the enjoyment you get out of it, being in the store or being at the market. You know, the external things that they can offer you, whether it's, you know, social or, you know, drinks or coffee, or, you know, it's like, you know, when you go to the barber and they offer you a beer, it's like, oh, this is great because it's like a cultural thing, right? Like, I'm hoping that's a global thing. I'm not too sure if it's just, but I think it's definitely the experience is where I think it's going to be the turning point in whether. Globally, whether we stick to an online, obviously it's a lot more cost effective for businesses to run because there's no overheads of rent and staff. Okay, there still might be minimal staff depending on like the volume and stuff like that. But I definitely think it's going to be an interesting space going into that now, where especially for us, we're coming out of lockdown. we're going back into where things are slowly opening up again. And I really do hope that people can enjoy that experience going into a football shirt store at a market and being able to touch and feel and say, oh, this is amazing. This reminds me of, when Batista was playing at Roma. And it's like all of a sudden, oh man, there's all these thoughts that keep coming up. So for that, I think there's so much value there to be had. Going back on what you were saying about like the market and finding that shirt for a good price and then on selling it for a valuable price. This is part and parcel of life, right? Like people getting upset at Alice for being the first person in the door. You can't be upset about that. That's like saying you can't be upset at him. It's like saying, oh, we lost the Champions League final, I hate the other team. It's like it's not their fault they beat you. They chose to be. It's competition. That's how it is, right? This is correct. It's early bird gets the worm. So you can't be upset about him because he's putting the effort in to do what he loves and what he wants to achieve. If you have a goal, look, I'm not giving life advice to anyone, but if you have a goal and you want to get to it, if you're going to let things stop you purely because of whatever reason, and someone else is not going to let anything stop them, of course they're going to win. It's common sense. So I think that there needs to be less complaining online and more acting out in stores. And if you can get to the stores or acting online, go and get what you want. I think we're going to move into some more modern territory now. Obviously, we've got the new releases by Adidas, the Pharrell collaboration, Human Race. Now, this is an interesting partake on what's retro and what's old and what's valuable, right? Because these are obviously they're reasonably priced shirts. They're obviously throwing back to 80s, 90s, and even 2000s in Juventus and Real Madrid's case. I think you're probably more design savvy than what I am, that's for sure. So I might let you have that bit, but I think from my personal taste, I think they did really well with some of them. I think the United one is probably the best one I've seen. I really wasn't much of a fan of the Arsenal. I know that's probably going to be a bit controversial, but there was no Chelsea one because they're obviously with Nike now. So I think they're definitely really cool concepts. I'm interested to see how they go holding value. I don't think it's going to be great. And I'm interested actually to see how they withstand time as well. Like, you see shirts like these, right? I know this obviously isn't that old. This is only probably about 20 years old compared to, say, 25. But these shirts have obviously, thicker material. They've lasted 25 years. They've stood the test of time, no problems. I'm definitely interested to see how these go. Obviously, they're not going to skimp out. It's Adidas, right? Like, let's be honest. But, will these last till 2050? And will they be of value in 2050? Will they still be in one piece? Who knows?
Let's just hope for the sake of humanity that the world exists by 2050. The way we're going, we're fucking everything up. No, honestly, on touching base on the last thing you mentioned about the whole thrift shop, I do hope in the future that there are more sort of market sort of style, and that's where we see a lot of like Northern Ireland football shirt stores and all that opening up in the UK because there's a market, Cold Kids, classic football shirts. So I do hope that scene does grow in Australia. You're doing your part, Football House, Vintage Soccer shirts, and polyester are all doing their part. Now, talking about the human race, I know when you talk about designing thing, I think everyone wears a football kit differently. I do like wearing my football kits where I like to match my brands, and everyone's got their own style. Look, the human race items, from what I've seen, the panels are really sturdy. They're almost to the level of elite football shirts. They're using the same technology for their fan editions as they are using for this sort of fourth kit, basically, when you think about it. United's already got 3 kits. Now this is their 4th. Technically, Nike is still set to release a 4th kit for a lot of their elite teams. What are my thoughts on these? I think value-wise, next 10 years, maybe not so, but there was a limited release. So a lot of places have sold out. If we are going to see a second release like the Nigeria 2018 kit had, because the 2020 for both Inter and Nigeria have not sold out. When you look at it, I think Nike were freaked out and they just did extra, which is bad for the value and also the amount that are sold. But I think the human race items at the time, they're going to be not on par with the Palace collaboration for Juventus. Out of all the human race items, look, there's a lot of talk about the Pharrell collaboration. What did he do? Yeah, Arsenal by far got the best one. I think the Bruised Banana, even though there's different versions of it, there's a red, there's a purple. But I think from an Adidas point of view, they did their part. I really like it. You can have a feel of it when you want to chat. I think in the video that I'm creating, I sort of saw what they valued from the Palace on StockX, and I sort of did an estimate and sort of trying to see what is going to be the value of these in the future. Look, I think from a design point of view, it just shows that football kits and the future of football kit designs are growing, because looking at this design, they've pushed the boundaries for something unique. Look, when we look at football jerseys in the 80s and 90s, there was really nice designs. In the early 2000s, they went to cactus. They went so plain. Total 90 was probably the only unique sort of design they had. And then, yeah, late 2010s, we started thinking more ethically, started designing more kits with recycled material. And when it came to the visual side of things, brands and manufacturers started pushing boundaries. I think Hummel have done an amazing job with Everton, and I see Adidas pushing boundaries. The human race is just the beginning of football shirts for 2020 onwards. That's my opinion. I think people that dishonor it will definitely go buy, what's that company that I hate? Store Draw? Yeah, Scourge. The people that hate the human race wear Score Draw kits. They run around in their English kits with literally the shittest design, or they go to their club store, Man United, Chelsea, wherever, and they buy the redesign of a retro kit. They won't upcycle. They buy this shitty design and then they'll throw in the bin or do whatever they want with it, and then they just complain online. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be. I'm interested to see where this goes in terms of how this affects the value of the older shirts, the original ones, right? So I feel like now, because these are quite sought after, I feel like the original. This is what 1992 United, right? Yeah. So I think that's going to be extremely high value now because it's going to be high demand. It works in line with how like the Inter kit works, right? Like, so the Inter released their third kit, all of a sudden the Umbro and the Nike versions of the horizontal stripes massively hiking value. I know you've obviously got this on here. But yeah, look, I definitely think it's going to be interesting long term. There's always hype instantly. So, you're going to pay premium price. And I think it was Rick FSC that had he had the cool discount code that hooked everyone up. So props to that dude. Good bloke. I definitely am really interested to see how these go long term. Interesting things with these shirts, right? Like, I know with Real Madrid, their logo obviously came out similar design to the rest of them, just same sort of painting theory. It didn't last, so the club weren't too happy about it. So they had to do a redesign of the logo, which is, I think it's still like a basic concept of, still along the same sort of lines, but just not as printed, not as printed, not as water paint, correct. It's going to be strange too. Like, I know Bayern aren't wearing theirs till like later on in the DFB Pokal. Yeah, I think it's going to be like December. So by then, is everyone going to be bored of it? Is it going to maybe give it a boost in stock prices, so to speak? It's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see long term how these go comparatively to the kits that they've replicated, not replicated, but based on. How do you think it's going to affect the price range, and how do you think things are going to look comparing the older shirts to these ones?
And definitely, I know it's going to be a long episode today, so we'll do more of these and talk more topics. But my last say on the human race, I just lost my voice there. The last thing I want to say about these human race items is that I have the Snowflake original version of this, thanks to Cult Kits. I'm doing, like I said, a video on this whole topic. Look, I believe that the original kit not only will sustain its original pricing and grow in value, but I think this just introduced a lot of the new generation to that design, because anyone that's on, playing FIFA, the young kids these days, I say like an old man, they probably never knew about that design. So this may introduce them back to that. The Juventus kit that they wore to the game is only recent. That's the one that Drake made famous. I love that kit. I've got that as well, part of my collection. We opened that in the box recently. I think that design, even though it's recent, it's got a redesign. It just gives extra value and extra thought to these kits. I don't think it's going to affect the pricing. I think these are just collector items. Look, each their own. We've all got our opinions on cars. Some people like Minis, some people like BMWs. When it comes to collecting a car, people out there do what they think. I think the value of this kit isn't the question that I want to worry about. I'm more excited to see what Adidas will do for the future kits. Can you imagine, like, this is a unique bespoke design just for United? I would love them to do that a lot more with other teams. For example, in Australia, we've only got one team here. It's Victory. They've got their design similar to what they've been using on other football teams. I would love to see Adidas push the boundaries for other smaller teams or even bigger teams. I'd love to see something like this for Boca Juniors, the third kit, second kit. The question is this just an advantage in football jersey sort of creations, and do we think that artistically we're going to see something more and better in the future?
I hope so. I think, look, a lot of it comes down to marketability and being able to make sales. So obviously these big clubs, they will sell these because people love the club, right? So loving the club is going to be where the sale comes from. Yes, and there is obviously that culture around football too, whether, you might be a neutral supporter, you might support someone from Germany, but you might get the United kit because it's a really nice shirt. I think it's going to be interesting going forward. I really hope that they do, Adidas, whoever the manufacturer will be, I hope there is more and more effort put in each year to creating something different, creating something trend-setting that's the technological side behind it, that's sweat resistant, and I know all these things are already obviously put into these fabrics, but I think this is a platform now that, because the community is so big, and I think it's going to really put a step in the right direction for the next few years. So I really think these manufacturers have a really good opportunity now to create something really beautiful and really, really amazing. Yeah. I'll let you sign off on the episode, mate. It's been a good one today.
No, agreed. And look, when it comes to topics, please let us know. We probably didn't finish this in a proper way. Paul will definitely plug the website and maybe talk about a new item that he has. From me, I really enjoy making these episodes. I just want to say thank you to everyone for subscribing. As of today, I'm at 333 subscribers. Look, I started this 6 months ago. Didn't expect 300 people alone to follow. But I did notice there's 70% that are not subscribed that watch my videos. And I would love, if you are watching this, if you've made it the whole way, thank you so much. A quick tip. I know not a lot of us don't like to get the premium version of YouTube, but if you want to listen to this as an audio, please let me know. I'm happy to make Spotify episodes. But thank you so much to everyone for watching this episode. Like I said, Paul will sign off. Both these topics are something special to all of us, and if you have any questions, any other topics you want to talk about, put them in the comments below. Every sort of item, music, or where I get my kits are in the description below. Thank you so much. I'll let Paul sign off on his end, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, mate. Look, it's always a pleasure. It's good to be outdoors, and it's good to definitely be doing something a little bit different for this episode. I'm looking forward to the next few, and hopefully we can get outside a bit more often. I'm actually hoping we can get to a market store. Maybe we can pop up a few kits there for some people to see and enjoy. Look, there's a lot going on with the site at the moment. With marketplace is booming, so if you guys want to sell your kits, there's a platform for you to sell directly to consumers, so directly to people that want to buy kits. So please, feel free to hit me up, message me on Instagram, anything you want to do. We'll try and work something out together. Otherwise, man, there's a few new cool kits that we've got online. We picked up this cracking Parma shirt with Nakata on the back. Cracker player, beautiful shirt, champion. That team was quality. I think Cannavaro was still in that team as well, which is really cool. Definitely, man, it's been a pleasure. It's always good to get outside, and I'm happy. And now let's go for a run. And got that buzz from the coffee, so I think I'm ready to go. Thanks, guys.